Renée of France was born in Blois on October 25, 1510. She was the youngest daughter of Louis XII of France and his second wife, Anne of Brittany. Renée lost her mother at the age of 4, her father at the age of 5, and her sister Claude, wife of François I of France and thus Queen Consort of France, when she was 14. René's mother, Anne of Brittany, entrusted René's education to Michel de Sorbonne, but de Sorbonne was quickly dismissed because she was too protective of René and professed ideas concerning religious reform. René was a clever child. She was interested in ancient languages, history, mathematics, philosophy, and theology, and astonished the court with her knowledge of astronomy and alchemy. René's brother-in-law, François I, was involved in the Habsburg-Valois Wars in Italy against Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor. Searching for new allies, he arranged a marriage for René to Ercole d'Este, Duke of Ferrarra, who was the son of the infamous Lucrezia Borgia. On May 28, 1528, René married Ercole II d'Este, Duke of Ferrara, Modena, and Reggio. René brought only a modest dowry with her to Italy, especially taking into consideration that she was a daughter of France who could have inherited the Duchy of Brittany. The marriage contract between her parents specified that, if the crown of France went to the eldest child, the Duchy of Brittany had to go to the second child, male or female, meaning it would go to René. But as there was no male child born from the marriage between Louis and Anne, the crown of France passed on to François of Angoulême, and it was Claude who inherited the duchy from her mother at her death in 1514. Upon the death of Claude, René was married off and sent to Italy in order to prevent her from claiming the ducal throne of Brittany. Much later on, and once widowed, René would oppose King Charles IX of France in vain to recover what she considered to be her inheritance. The marriage between René and Ercole d'Este produced 5 children. Those 5 are Anne d'Este, who married François, Duke of Guise, and after François' death married Jacques de Savoie, the second Duke of Nemours; Alfonso II, who followed in his father's footsteps as Duke of Ferrara; Lucrezia Maria d'Este, who married Francesco Maria II della Rovere, Duke of Urbino; Eleonore d'Este, and Luigi d'Este, who became Bishop of Ferrara and Archbishop of Auch. When René's father-in-law, Alfonso I d'Este, died in October 1534, Ercole succeeded him as Duke of Ferrara. One of his first actions was to expel all French courtiers from his duchy, as their numbers were so large that he considered it too expensive to house them all at his court. Many of them were the French ladies and men who arrived in Ferrara with René, leaving René in a somewhat isolated position at court. Ercole was not happy with his spouse, whose behavior and spirit were not those of the traditional wife he wished her to be, when René gathered a crowd of learned men around her. Many of these individuals were Protestants from Italy, Germany, France, and Geneva. Soon she opened her doors for Protestant refugees from all over Europe. She successfully defended Protestants who were arrested for blasphemous actions. René's open-minded court led to a visit of John Calvin to Ferrara in 1536, and as early as 1537 she began to correspond with Calvin. Consequently, a horrified Ercole dismissed and imprisoned more members of his spouse's household. Some of them were accused of heresy, tortured, and executed despite René's objections. Due to the Duke's dislike of everything French, he compelled the last French guests to leave Ferrara in 1543. Despite Ercole's attempts, René continued her clandestine work because of her piety, hospitality, and generosity to those who were in danger due to their faith. Eventually, on March 18, 1554, Ercole banned Calvinism in his states. Ercole's decision had great consequences for René. Firstly, she received a stern warning from Mathieu Horry, Grand Inquisitor of France, who was sent to the Ferrara court by Henri II of France, and later on she was imprisoned and interrogated by the local Inquisitor of Ferrara. Eventually, she agreed to attend Mass and take communion again, and to go to confession, thus apparently denying Calvinism. Once freed, however, Renée continued to advocate the Protestant cause, more discreetly now, this to the disappointment of Calvin, who would have liked to make her the heroine of Calvinism. On October 3, 1559, Renée's husband, Ercole II d'Este, died. Renée returned to France in September 1560 and settled in Montargis. There, she welcomed Protestants who wanted to take refuge, despite the threats of the French court and of her son-in-law, the Duke of Guise. During the first 3 wars of religion, she managed to keep Montargis safe thanks to skillful negotiations. Despite the fact that Renée was a Protestant and her daughter Anne had married 2 fervent Catholics in succession, Renée always showed the greatest solidarity with her eldest daughter. Therefore, historians now consider Renée of France to be in the group of those people who wanted to keep peace at any price. When Renée attended the wedding of Henri de Navarre and Marguerite of Valois in 1572, she was protected by the guards of her son-in-law, the Duke of Nemours, during the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. Renée, who was completely shocked by the events, left Paris in silence under the protection of a royal escort provided by the House of Guise. The protection was probably given to her because she was the grandmother of the reigning Duke of Guise. During the last 2 years of her life, Renée lived a quiet life, but until the end, she continued to protect Protestant refugees in her chateau in Montargis. At the end of her life, she became concerned with the succession of the Duchy of Ferrarra, trying to persuade her youngest son, Luigi, to abandon his ecclesiastical life to follow in the footsteps of his brother Alfonso II, who died without children. Luigi refused, however. Renée of France died in Montargis on June 12, 1574. Due to her Protestant connections, it was out of the question for her to be buried at the royal crypt at Saint-Denis. Therefore, upon Renée's request, she was buried at Montargis without pomp and circumstance. It is not exactly known where she is buried. Thank you for watching.